Everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's topic I've actually been thinking about for quite some time. And one thing that has resonated the most with me is how families are pretty much being separated from their loved ones once they pass away from COVID in hospitals. In thinking about grief and thinking about losing a loved one, it already comes with its issues to begin with. And when you add this additional layer, to an already complicated experience and painful experience, it kind of magnifies the intensity of it. And I try to even put myself in the position or in the shoes of people that are having to actually be told, like, listen, your loved one passed away, but you're not able to see them. You're not able to put them in their final resting place. You're not able to do all these things that kind of help us onset, the grief process. So in thinking about it, I said, wow, if I have this question, I'm pretty sure a lot of other people have these questions and are wondering, how can you get over the loss of a loved one when you add this other dimension or this other layer to it. And I did find a couple of articles that were written by psychotherapists as well as a blog that kind of started the conversation of realizing that, yeah, this is a tragic time to lose someone. So the first article that I found was written by psychotherapist Mile Israeli. So she wrote an article related to the mourning, the death of a loved one during this actual pandemic. And she pretty much highlighted the experience right now in hospitals for both the medical professionals and the families grieving. She went into the difficulty of the medical professionals having to deliver this message. How do you tell a loved one, your loved one just died, but you also can't see them? There may be frustration, there may be anger being projected at this time. Questions like, what do you mean I can't see my loved ones? And I've even heard of people that they don't even know about the death of their family member until they themselves are able to get connected via phone and actually get the news that their loved one is no longer here. In the article, she also mentioned that the complexity of the situation can lead people to experience what we know as complicated grief. It simply means that you're going to experience your emotions to a more intense level. And also, the duration of it is much longer than what a normal grief process would entail. Complicated grief can also happen when the loss is perceived as traumatic. I cannot find a better word to label this situation other than traumatic. I can't even imagine, the agony that these families and people are going through after being told this. So this brings me to my next article. I actually found a blog. It's called What's Your Grief? WYG.com. So they did note that with trauma, it isn't the specific nature of the death that makes it traumatic, rather how the event is interpreted and experienced by the individual. And I thought that was powerful just because sometimes we may perceive certain deaths as traumatic simply by how they occurred. Oh, this person got murdered. Oh, this person, died in a tragic accident. We assume that their loved ones or whoever, knew them is going to perceive it the same way we do. So it's not the actual nature of the death that makes it traumatic, it's the response that the actual loved one has to the event that makes it traumatic or not. This blog is actually not related to the actual COVID situation going on. It's actually related to traumatic loss, period. But I felt like it still applied to what, we're discussing today. According to Wortman and Lattock, a traumatic loss is when a death is considered traumatic if it occurs without warning, untimely. So already we got kind of like two checks. Like a lot of people can consider this untimely, being that this virus kind of, it seems to have appeared kind of out of the blue and just literally changed everyone's lives in a matter of days. Um, it can also be considered traumatic if it involves violence, if there is a damage to the loved one's body, it was actually caused by a perpetrator with the intent to harm, if the survivor regards the death as preventable. And I think that's perhaps something that people may struggle with. If the survivor believes that the loved ones suffer, right? So we all know the symptoms that kind of lead people to being in critical condition. What they kind of related to is the feelings of drowning. I can only imagine the discomfort, the pain, and the distress, both physically and psychologically, that it can have on the person. Um, as well as if the survivor regards the death or the manner of death as unfair and unjust. I would be very quick to say this is unfair, this is unjust, just being, you know, kind of like aware of all the limitations and restrictions that families are having. Even funeral homes are having to turn down people. Now we're going to go into what the actual impact can be. It can actually impact your perception of the world. So prior to this loss, you may have perceived the world as one thing, and after the loss, you may perceive it as something else. And when this kind of loss happens, you may perceive the world as unjust, unfair, as evil, as not a good place to be in. Another thing it may impact is your faith in God or whoever you regard as a higher power. It can be questioned. You may feel abandoned. You may feel like, why would God let me go through this? Why would God take away my loved one? Because sometimes we tend to resort to questioning God and being that he's the one that knows it all and wants the best for us and, does for us and pretty much has our lives mapped out. You question, why would you do this to me? Why would you have me experience such a loss? Rumination related to the event, and I think this is one of the most pivotal factors of in terms of like the impact of a traumatic loss. You're too preoccupied with trying to understand the loss, and therefore you're kind of going over either the day of the event, the days leading up to the event, and kind of like you explore the different outcomes that could have happened had something different happened. But truly, rumination is the effects of loss of control, right? Because we like to think that we have control a lot of the times, if not all. And when that control is taken away from us, then we tend to kind of go into that overthinking or ruminating process where we feel like we have to fix it in our head and therefore find where was the error, what happened that perhaps should have not happened, that would have not led to this situation, right? Also, feelings of guilt, feelings of blame, and impotence. A lot of times you feel like, was there something I could have done for my loved one to prevent this? You blame it on yourself. And you even start to feel impotent because I can't even imagine looking into the face of the family and telling them that's it. There's nothing else. And also, this may lead people to feeling hopeless, that life can't possibly get better after this, just based on the intensity of your feelings. And the intensity of your feelings can oftentimes lead you to feel like you're going crazy, like you're going to lose your mind. For a lot of people, can be perceived as traumatic, can be perceived as something that, perhaps you won't get over. Now, the first step is trying to understand, the traumatic loss. So it's being able to, at some point, understanding that both trauma and loss are two different fields. And unfortunately, when they happen together, the feelings and emotions are kind of blended together, and therefore it makes the entire process feel even worse. Just because in a perfect world, you would address the trauma and then the loss, or vice versa. But being that, kind of happen together, it's hard to differentiate where do I go first. It's kind of just like a mix of emotions. Trauma and loss can bring up a lot of different emotions. And when you blend those together, you feel like you're just overwhelmed. The next question, where do you go from here? Is there anywhere to go from, right? So my thoughts and suggestions, and based on, what information I was able to gather from my research, I found that these things that I'm going to highlight are helpful in terms of providing a stepping stone as to what potentially you can do to help yourself. But again, it's not to say that it's going to cure you from your feelings. It's going to cure you from feeling like you're going to lose your mind, or it's going to cure you from feeling the intensity of the pain that you're feeling. Because at the end of the day, like that comes with the process, and nothing's going to take that away, unfortunately. It's just about, being able to cope through it, being able to live through it and to get to another day. Because with such a loss, you can only hope to take it moment by moment. You can't even take it day by day, just because that in itself may seem overwhelming, right? So I found that honoring your feelings and validating your experience is crucial in being able to move forward. Loss is hard enough, and adding trauma to it only magnifies the intensity and experience. Again, a lot of times we feel like we're doing things incorrectly or that we're taking too long, specifically in the grief experience. Let me tell you, if you've been affected by COVID-19 and lost a loved one as a result, there is no time in the world that's going to be considered too much time. You need to take your time. You need to be patient with yourself and understand that this is a great loss. This is a deep loss. This is a tragic loss. This is a traumatic loss. This is a loss that's very different from the normal grief or the normal losses. Just understand that your feelings are yours, and no matter what people may tell you or what you may see in the news or anywhere else, that you're entitled to feel how you feel. And you're entitled to feel like this is the worst experience I've ever had, because perhaps, yeah, it is. And be patient with yourself and understand that whatever you're doing right now is the best that you can do. So if you woke up today and all you felt like doing was crying, let it be. Allow those tears to come out. Allow that pain to come out of your system. A lot of times when we repress them or we keep them inside, they just tend to build up until finally we let them out. Emotions have a way of coming out, whether it's with our permission or without our permission, right? They're going to come out regardless. So just, it makes it easier in being able to say, okay, today I feel like crap. Today I feel like crying. Today I feel like doing nothing. Today I feel like just feeling my pain. That's what I'm going to do, regardless of what's going on, in my external. Loss itself sometimes has you feeling that isolation is your friend. And let me tell you from personal experience, isolation is not your friend. If anything, it digs you in the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. The more you disconnect from people, the more you shut yourself out from the world, the more you build that wall to not have to deal with life, the more, painful the process can actually feel, and the more alone you can feel through it. And a lot of times in our pain related to loss, not related to loss, we feel like our pain is unique to us and that no one understands us, especially during this time when people are losing people due to COVID-19. You may feel like you're in your own boat and no one else can understand. And that may be true. That may be true in terms of, perhaps not many people around you have experienced it. It's something that pain is pain, and we're only able to be supportive and sympathetic and empathetic towards the situation. Isolation may feel like it's your friend because you perhaps feel angry or like no one will understand, but surrounding yourself with a small support system whom you can rely on when your emotions feel too heavy, makes the load feel a little lighter. So being able to just select a few people, I'm not saying that you have to get a support system of like 25 people, like one person is enough to be able to talk to that person and say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, or sit with that person in silence, or cry with that person, or simply be held or comforted by that person. We don't need to know the words, we don't need to know the answers, because truthfully, there are no answers to this. It's just a matter of allowing the person's feelings and emotions to come out and giving them that safe space to have them come out. Actually, when you're tired of spiraling, of circling, of ruminating, of feeling stuck, eventually that may be you kind of a sign for you to seek professional help. And I highly, 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 highly recommend it. Even our support system, they're also limited to what they can do. So you want to be able to go to a professional, to a support group where, that's pretty much something that they've specialized in and they're able to help you process. Because again, you have to be able to process the trauma and the loss, and your average layman person is not going to be able to be skilled enough to tell you, oh, yes, well, this is where we're going to start today. No, so that's why a grief therapist specifically could be helpful. A grief therapist trained in trauma will even be better. Professional help can help you not only process the loss, but it also helps you make peace with yourself, with your loved one, and with the situation. Because a lot of times our feelings will have us feeling anxious, frustrated, depressed, and feeling like hopeless, like this is never going to get better. So we need to find that peace, however that peace looks like. So just remember, you're not alone in your pain. As I often tell people, through hardships, through loss, through all of this, we always take away something. And it may be difficult to find that there is anything to take away from or learn from such a situation so early on. So I'm not even telling you to even be bothered with that. At some point down the line, years later, perhaps you'll be able to reflect on this situation that you've experienced from a different lens. Because oftentimes, as time evolves, we're able to see things again differently, change our perception, and again, as I say to my close ones, my loved ones, my friends, families, if you're still here, it means it's not the end. And it means you still have work to do here. It means you still have purpose. You are still loved, and you will survive this too. I know it may seem difficult, so I'm sending nothing but love, positive energy, hugs to everyone out there, whether you're affected directly or indirectly by this pandemic. And all you can do is hang on tight. So even if you're not close to your loved ones right now, pick up that phone, FaceTime, video chat, however that may look for you. Tomorrow's not promised. So I hope you guys have found this video helpful. Please do feel free to leave me any suggestions or comments or send me an email. So take care, stay safe, most importantly, stay sane. Take care.